It's your boy JD the Black Pilot here with part 3 of my video series, How I Selected My Flight School. If you haven't watched my previous 2 videos, look in the description below for a link to those videos.
Okay, let's go.
Showing up unannounced. So this is a warning. This is going to be probably the longest video of this series, but for me it was the most involved portion because again, I'm spending $12,000 to $20,000, or you could potentially be spending $12,000 to $20,000 as well. So I showed up unannounced, and what that did was allow me to gauge the level of the professionalism for the staff, to see how their customer service was in person and not only over the phone, to see if they were friendly, and to see how busy they were, and see how other students reacted with me, with the staff, and how the staff reacted with the other students as well. This also helped me understand if they had support staff there to help the instructors, help the operations of the school going on. And once again, it helped me understand how I should expect to be treated by the school, because once again, I'm hiring them to teach me how to fly, and I'm spending quite a bit of money. Once I greeted them, I started asking them questions, and I asked some of the same questions that I asked on the phone, and that helped me know if I was going to get a different answer. Some staff may not be as knowledgeable as others, and I wanted to know if the staff was on the same page. If I'm being told one thing over the phone and another thing in person, that's something to take note of. It happens in business. Sometimes all your staff isn't on the same page. But I asked, are you a Part 61 or Part 141 school? And again, I asked, is your ground school, in-house ground school, required to be taken in person, or can I take online ground school through another school? Now, full disclosure, the in-house requirement was an eliminating factor for me. I knew I was not going to spend 10 weeks and $700 taking in-person ground school. So that was automatic eliminating factor for me, but it might not be for you. And then I asked if I can see their on-site, if they had on-site maintenance. So then I asked if I could have a tour. With the tour, I asked to see the maintenance bay. I specifically wanted to see the maintenance bay because that let me know the cleanliness of that bay is a huge factor for me. If I walked into that bay and there was grease everywhere or bolts everywhere, that lets me know, or at least gives me some insight to the quality of service or maintenance or care that they have for those aircraft. If it's clean, so that way if they drop a bolt, they can find the bolt and put it back, in the appropriate spot, that's important for me to know. So the quality and the cleanliness of the bay was a huge determining factor of the quality of their work. I also asked to see their aircraft. And once I looked at the aircraft, I wanted to see how many aircraft they had. I wanted to see if they had glass cockpits or if they had steam gauges. I also wanted to know what types of aircraft did they have. Did they have Cessnas, or did they have Pipers? Did they have the high wings, or did they have the low wing aircraft? Those are all factors that were important to me. Lastly, I asked for a tour of their building. I wanted to see where their classroom were, where the pilot lounge were, where the break areas were, the restrooms, all those things. Then I asked some additional follow-up questions. The additional follow-up questions I asked were, do you have discounted rate for bulk hours? For instance, I know it takes a minimum of 40 hours, but if I decide I wanted to buy 20 hours, instead of at the, let's say $150 for round numbers, at $150 an hour for the aircraft, will you give it to me for 140 or 130 or whatever that case may be? I also asked if they had flight simulators and what types of flight simulators. And that's important because the FAA determines that you can do X amount of hours on certain types of flight simulators for your hours, and that mainly applies for your instructor rating, your instrument rating, but it still does apply for your private pilot certificate. I also asked, what is your instructor to student ratio, which directly goes into how do you schedule the training. So if they had a high instructor to student ratio, i.e. they had 20 students to one instructor, well, that's probably a little difficult to get scheduled. Also asking how do you pick your instructor? Is one assigned to you, or can you choose your instructor? When I mentioned about scheduling, if there's online scheduling, if you had to be in person, how that worked. And then important, what is your cancellation policy? Your cancellation policy, I talked about the commute that I had between my house and some of those other schools, and not understanding or not knowing what the traffic is going to be like. It's a possibility that you may have to cancel. And at $175 for renting an aircraft, I don't want to lose that possibility. So what is your cancellation policy? I asked for the price sheet of the aircraft and for the price sheet of the instructors, which is going to help me in my next step with comparing the cost of all of those different, comparing the different costs. Regarding the price sheet, some of the schools will give you a price sheet that shows you can complete your private pilot certificate with about $8,000. And yes, you possibly can. However, that price sheet is based off of 40 hours, which is the minimum required by the FAA. The national average is about 60 to 70 hours. So while they're showing you that price sheet that you can complete for $8,000, in reality, that's probably going to be just somewhere between 12 to maybe up to $20,000. So obviously I plan on completing in the minimum amount. So stay tuned for some of my other videos on things that I'm doing in order to drive that cost down. You also need to ask, is the price sheet for the aircraft, is that a wet rate or a dry rate? And that just means, is fuel included in that cost, which is wet, or is it dry? And if not, if it's dry, you need to ask what is their fuel cost currently. And then the last question I asked was what software is required, i.e. do you all use ForeFlight, or do you use some other software for flight training? So check out part 4 of my video, which is the last in my series, and is comparing and selecting the flight schools. So click the like button, click the subscribe button, and click that bell so you can be notified when that video is released and my future videos. So thanks, take care.